If you're interested in some cool tricks and tips for the Roland Juno-106, this video is for you. I'm using a stock factory Roland Juno-106, of course. By using a negative filter envelope, you can squeeze sounds out of a 106 that you wouldn't normally believe could come from a 106. So let's have a look at the settings we have to master to be able to utilize a negative envelope in the filter section. First, by inverting the polarity switch for the envelope and the envelope modulation intensity fader will yield exactly the same result when the sustain is at maximum in the envelope section to the right there. So in that sense, the envelope section to the right can work exactly as you're used to, as long as you have the modulation intensity fader at minimum, while the polarity switch is at a negative envelope. It is now when you start to adjust the modulation intensity fader, the fun and interesting stuff are happening as long as you keep the polarity switch at a negative envelope. However, since that envelope modulation intensity fader only has a positive rate, while the envelope itself has been reversed, it has a negative profile, it takes some trial and error to understand how the ADSR faders actually now works, but the end result can be highly enjoyable and interesting. And as I showed you in the first example, by using a very long release time, together with inverting the decay and sustain time while having that envelope in a negative profile, the filter set at a maximum cutoff, together with the resonance, they will be swept in a way you could not achieve with a positive envelope profile. So this way I have a hard attack on that filter sweep. And this was the opposite. So a negative polarity on the envelope, playing with the attack and decay. This is the classic way of getting that Roland synth brass sound with a little spit in the beginning while the sound swells back. Okay, let's move on to the high-pass filter and let's debunk one myth right away. It's not at setting 0 where we have no high-pass filtering. That takes place at setting number 1. And more at setting number 2. And more at setting number 3. At setting 0, you actually get a bass boost. It's right there in the manual. The Juno-106 is actually, if you want it to be, a 3-oscillator synth. So let me turn off the DCO and the sub-oscillator. But I can still play the synth because I'm playing the filter. And I'm using the envelope modulation intensity fader to change the pitch of the filter. And I accomplish this by setting the filter into self-oscillation by turning the resonance way up. So as you can hear, I've turned off the sub-oscillator and the DCO, but I can still play the synth. I can also adjust the pitch of the filter by using the sustain fader there, and I can do this because I've detached that envelope section from the amp by setting the VCA amp into gate mode, and now that envelope section only affects the filter section. So I used this example to mimic a Hammond registration by using the sub-oscillator as the 16-foot drawbar, the DCO pulse as the 8-foot drawbar, and you can use that filter tracking, play the filter, to add that third harmonics wherever you want, really. Since the cutoff frequency does not change continuously, it can be hard to find a perfect tracking of the keyboard while playing the filter, but if you write that patch into memory and recall it, the filter pitch should be stable. I think this is a great way of using your Juno-106. You also have 3 different play modes, Poly 1, Poly 2, and Mono. In Poly 1, the 106 assigns 1 voice to each of the keys pressed. And this is the play mode you'd use most of the time, but if you enable the portamento with a very fast portamento time, it will sound like this in Poly 1, but enable Poly 2. And you almost get a monophonic synth. But you also have a unison mode by pressing Poly 1 and Poly 2 at the same time. Then you have a unison mode. It doesn't sound very good though. And the last little cool thing is sort of a bonus. It's not exclusive for the Juno-106. But every Roland or Boss serial number can be input into a Roland Boss database to find out exactly when your instrument was created or made by Roland. So if you go to this website, I'll link to it in the video description. You can just enter the serial number of your gear and what type of gear you have. And you can then find out exactly the year and month Roland made your synth. As you can see, my synth here was made in March 1985. Through the webpage, you can do the same for Boss products. Well, I hope you liked this little mix of cool tricks and tips for the Roland Juno-106, a great synth. As always, I'm Espen Kraft and I am the 80s. Thank you so much for watching and I'll see you next time. Cheers!